another very sick person. So I just want to thank everybody involved. And always you say, as bad as it was, it could have been worse. But it was certainly bad. Well, I've been speaking to him. I've been speaking to a lot of senators. We've been speaking to a lot of House members, a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, and people want to do something. So we're going to see. This really hasn't changed anything. We're doing a package, and we'll see how it comes about. It's coming about right now, and a lot of people are talking about it, and that's irrespective of what happened yesterday in Texas. Well, we're looking at a lot of different things. We're looking at a lot of different bills, ideas, concepts. It's been going on for a long while. Background checks. I will say that for the most part, sadly, if you look at the last 4 or 5, going back even 5 or 6 or 7 years, for the most part, as strong as you make your background checks, they would not have stopped any of it. So it's a big problem. It's a mental problem. It's a big problem.
So what this is Trump already deflecting responsibility for his party's inaction on gun safety measures by blaming this latest mass shooting in Odessa, Texas on the catch-all of mental illness. Because mental illness is vague enough, obscure enough, that no one solution is immediately clear. It gives Trump cover to drag his feet, to bemoan something that's generally accepted as unsolvable, when in reality, America is not the only country in the world where people have mental health issues. Mental health isn't by any stretch of the imagination uniquely an American problem. So what else could it be? Video games? Ungodliness? If only there was one variable that set the United States apart from every other nation on the face of the earth to determine what the cause of these daily mass shootings could be. Guess we'll never know. But the most hypocritical part, as if we needed a most hypocritical part, of Trump blaming mental illness is that he rolled back an Obama-era regulation that was intended to keep the guns out of hands of the mentally ill. That bill, House Joint Resolution 40, was passed by the Republican-controlled House and Senate. Think about that. Trump is blaming a problem that he has specifically exacerbated in his desperation to pander to the NRA. Trump goes on to say that as bad as it was, it could have been worse, which should give everyone some insight on the number of people that Trump thinks are expendable before he deigned to act on gun safety reforms. Because apparently 8 is below that threshold. And actually, given the fact that he's presided over the deaths of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Americans killed in mass shootings, it doesn't look like we're going to hit Trump's threshold anytime soon. Finally, Trump claims that this really hasn't changed anything. So I'd suggest Trump tell that to the moms and dads and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and husbands and wives and friends of the 8 people who've lost their lives so far just today. Say that this really hasn't changed anything to the first family, or the second family, or the third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth, or seventh, or eighth. Tell them that this really hasn't changed anything. Show them exactly how you feel in your desperation to downplay all of their deaths so that you can give yourself political cover to continue doing absolutely zero as Americans are getting slaughtered by the hundreds every single day. Not that it's even worth it to call out their hypocrisy, but this is the leader of the so-called pro-life party. But the fact is that the Republican Party has never cared about being pro-life. That's just cover they use to grandstand so their moral bankruptcy won't be so obvious. Because the fact is, instead of clutching their pearls over the literal non-existent phenomenon of post-birth abortion, instead of telling other women what they can do with an embryo in their uterus, they might want to focus their attention on viable human beings who are actually alive. But they won't, because Republicans don't want to solve actual problems. They're content sanctimoniously preaching about made-up ones to convince themselves of their morality. And the reason for all of this is simple and publicly available. It's about money. Gun lobbies fund Republicans at an exponentially higher rate than Democrats, especially considering that funding for the left is virtually non-existent now. In fact, the top 20 recipients of funding from the gun lobby are all Republicans, with donations ranging into nearly the $1 million range per candidate in just one election cycle. And it's all for moments like this, when, despite a staggering 94% of Americans supporting common sense gun safety measures like universal background checks, we're still getting the runaround from Republicans. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell still refuses to reconvene the Senate to vote on bills like H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Universal Background Checks Act of 2019, which passed the House 7 months ago and has been languishing in the Senate ever since. And Trump has never forgotten to remind us that the NRA will always have a seat at the table and be considered in his decision making. Because, of course, we wouldn't want the guys who profit from gun sales not to have their voices heard loud and clear too. And so it's become obvious that Trump and the rest of the Republican Party have no qualms preaching about wanting to keep Americans safer while ensuring that nothing in this country actually changes. They'll wheel off excuses, point their fingers at mental illness, claim that background checks won't actually solve anything, and so they won't even try. Because it should be obvious by now that losing lives is a small price for them to pay not to lose campaign dollars.